She bought his debt without looking at his face. She only needed arms to save her dying harvest. But when she pulled the hood from his hand, her eyes met the eyes of the man who had once sworn eternal love to her. Have you ever had the person you loved most return to you in a form so broken you barely recognize them? Magdalena Villarreal walked along the porch of the main house, her fists clenched deep within the pockets of her black dress. The dress had been black for 6 months. 6 months since that night Roberto had packed his belongings and told her he would rather be poor and alone than rich in her shadow. Have you ever been left by someone you loved with your entire soul? The corn was withering in the fields. The pumpkins rotted on the vine. If she lost this harvest, she would lose everything. One October afternoon, Father Tomas arrived. There's a place where you can get workers who cannot refuse, the debt market. The question is, what are you willing to lose? What would you be willing to lose to save what you love? Magdalena went to the market. She took her last 30 pesos. In a filthy alley behind the church, she found men in chains, and at the far end, almost hidden in the shadows, sat a figure with a burlap sack over his head. "That one," she said. 30 pesos. His back is marked, but he's yours." She took the rope. "Get up," she said. When they reached the barn, she pulled the sack from his head, and the world stopped, because beneath that sack was the face of Roberto. "Roberto," she whispered. "Roberto," he replied, his voice hoarse. "What happened?" He told her about the mines, the debts, the plantation where they marked his back with whips. He had tried to escape 3 times. 3 times they caught him. "Why didn't you write to me? Why didn't you ask for help?" "So you could rescue me again? I left to stop being your burden." Have you ever known someone whose pride became their prison? Magdalena walked to the door. "I need you to work. I have 2 weeks to save the harvest. You sleep in the barn." The next morning she made him breakfast. Coffee strong, the way he liked it. They didn't speak. Roberto worked from dawn until dark. He worked without stopping, as if trying to kill something inside himself with exhaustion. One night she found him collapsed by the well, burning with fever. She brought him inside, tended his wounds. She saw new scars, burst blisters, bruised ribs. "You're destroying yourself. Why?" "So I'm good for something, so at least I can pay." Have you ever felt so worthless you believed the only way to matter was to make yourself useful, even at the cost of your own life? When he recovered, they worked side by side. They didn't talk much, but something shifted. One morning she found wildflowers at the kitchen door. Another day her broken window was repaired. He never mentioned these gestures. She never thanked him aloud. But she began leaving things for him too. A glass of lemonade, an extra plate of his favorite food. This was how they communicated, not with words, but with acts. Because sometimes forgiveness isn't spoken. Sometimes forgiveness is woven slowly, gesture by gesture, day by day. Have you ever experienced forgiveness that was never spoken aloud, but shown through 1,000 small acts? The harvest was saved. That night, Magdalena made him an offer. "I can forgive your debt, give you money to go, or you can stay as a free laborer." Roberto shook his head. "I have a counter-proposal. I'll stay for 1 year, no pay, no privileges. At the end, if you feel I've proven myself, maybe we can talk about what we could be." Are you asking for another chance? No, I'm asking permission to earn one. Have you ever understood the difference between asking and earning? Magdalena agreed. For a year, Roberto worked with purpose. He mended fences, he fixed the roof, he carved her a wooden box. Each morning, fresh flowers appeared on the table. One afternoon, he spoke. "I used to love working these fields with you. I loved watching things grow with you." "Then why did you leave?" "Because the town wouldn't let me forget it wasn't mine. Everyone laughed at me. Something broke that day." "And you think it didn't hurt me to see how they looked at you?" "I know, but you could bear it. You're stronger." "I'm not stronger. I just loved more." Have you ever loved someone more than they loved you? Have you ever been willing to bear what they couldn't, simply because your love was deeper? The months passed. 8 months, 10 months. Their conversations grew longer. Their silences grew comfortable. Laughter returned to the hacienda for the first time in years. One afternoon, Roberto was repairing the windmill when he fell. Magdalena ran to him, helped him inside, tended his wounds. "You're all I have," she said, the words escaping before she could stop them. Roberto looked at her. "You're all you have?" "In terms of workers," she said quickly. But both knew what she really meant. Have you ever said one thing when you meant another because the truth was too terrifying to speak? 2 weeks before the year was complete, Roberto sat her down. "Magdalena, I need you to know something. I've learned that pride is poison. It doesn't matter what anyone says. The only thing that matters is that when I wake where you are. That's all I need." The final morning arrived. They sat on the porch watching the sunrise. "The year is complete," Magdalena said. "What do you want?" "I want to stay, not as a worker, as your husband, as the man who loves you."
Magdalena took his hand. "This year, I watched you become the man I always knew you could be. I want you to stay." She kissed him, a kiss that tasted of tears, of forgiveness, of second chances. Have you ever experienced a moment when everything broken suddenly felt whole? They went to the church. Father Tomas married them again, this time with different words. Words about being human, about failing, about choosing to try again. Words about how love isn't about never falling, but about always getting back up. That night they slept in the same bed for the first time in over a year. There was no passion, there was tenderness. There were whispered conversations in the dark. There were Magdalena's tears when she saw the scars on his back by moonlight, and Roberto's tears when she kissed them one by one. There was forgiveness, sealed with kisses and with silences. Have you ever understood that sometimes the most intimate moments aren't about passion, but about healing? The years passed. A daughter was born, Elena, named after Roberto's mother. Then Tomas, named after the priest who had married them twice. Then the twins, Rosa and Carmen. Los Laureles overflowed with life. Children's voices filled the hallways. Laughter erupted in the garden. The hacienda that had once been silent and dying now pulsed with energy and joy. Roberto became the father he never had. He had infinite patience for Elena's endless questions, quiet firmness for Tomas's stubborn streaks, tenderness for the twins who followed him everywhere. On Sundays, he took them walking through the fields. He taught them the names of plants. He showed them where birds nested. He told them stories of the land that would someday be theirs. Have you ever watched someone transform before your eyes, becoming the person they were always meant to be? One afternoon, 7-year-old Elena asked, "Papa, is it true you left once?" Roberto stopped walking. "Where did you hear that?" "In town. A boy told me." Roberto knelt before his daughter. "It's true. I left once, before you were born."
Why? Because I was scared. I was afraid I wasn't enough. And when we're afraid, sometimes we do foolish things." Elena frowned. "But you came back." "Yes, I came back." "And Mama forgave you?" "Yes, though it took a long time. She taught me that love is about staying, even when it's hard." Elena nodded. "Then you're not a bad man. Bad men don't come back, and they don't learn to be better." Roberto hugged her tightly. "Thank you, little one. You don't know how much I needed to hear that." Have you ever been forgiven by someone so innocent that their forgiveness felt like a gift from God? Have you ever seen yourself through a child's eyes and understood that redemption is real? The children grew. Elena married a teacher. Tomas studied agriculture. Rosa became a nun. Carmen went north to open a shop. The house grew quieter. But then the grandchildren came. Every summer, Los Lauriles filled with laughter again. Roberto and Magdalena sat on the porch in the rocking chairs he had built, watching their grandchildren play beneath the orange tree. One July afternoon, Roberto took Magdalena's hand. "Do you remember the night I returned?" Every detail. The sack over your head, the scars, the fear in your eyes. "I thought you were going to kill me. I wanted to." Roberto laughed. "And now? Now I can't imagine a single day without you." He squeezed her hand. "Magdalena, I need to tell you something. I wouldn't change anything. Not the mines, not the whippings, not the years apart. Because all of it brought us here, to this porch, to these grandchildren, to 40 years together." Magdalena felt tears in her eyes. "You're a sentimental fool. I'm your sentimental fool."
Yes, you are. Have you ever reached a place in life where you could look back at all the pain and say it was worth it because of where it led you? Roberto died first, on an April morning when the orange trees were in bloom. He was 72, his hair completely white, his back stooped from decades of work. But his eyes were the same eyes she had fallen in love with. The night before, he had called her to his side. "Lie with me," he said. She lay beside him as she had done thousands of nights, but this night was different. This night held the taste of farewells. "Are you afraid?" she asked. "No, not anymore." He paused. "Do you know what I was thinking about?" "What?" "The day you bought my debt. From the moment that sack came off my head and I saw your face, I knew God had given me a second chance. I spent every day since then trying to be worthy of it." "You were worthy. You always were." He lifted a trembling hand to her face. "I love you, Magdalena. I loved you from the first moment I saw you. I loved you when I left. I loved you when I thought I'd never see you again. And I love you now, more than anything." "I love you too, Roberto. I loved you then. I love you now. I love you forever. Promise me something? Anything. Promise me you'll tell our story. The whole story, the bad parts and the good, so they know that love isn't about being perfect. It's about staying, about coming back, about trying again." "I promise." Roberto's eyes closed, his breathing slowed. "Magdalena? Yes? It's beautiful. The light." And then he was gone.
Have you ever held someone you loved as they left this world and understood that love is the only thing that matters? Magdalena held him until the sun rose, painting the room in gold. She held him until the grandchildren came looking for breakfast and found her there, still holding him, still whispering words of love. The funeral was simple. The entire town came. Even those who had whispered about him, who had judged him, came to pay respects. because 40 years had passed, and in those 40 years, Roberto Mendez had become part of the fabric of San Cristobal. He had helped build the new church roof. He had donated land for the school. He had hired local boys, taught them to farm, given them wages that allowed them to support their families. He had become, through sheer force of will and love, the man he always wanted to be. What will they say about you when you're gone? What will you leave behind? Magdalena lived 10 more years. She watched her grandchildren grow and marry. She held great-grandchildren in her arms. She sat on that porch every evening, watching the sunset, feeling Roberto beside her, even though she could no longer see him. She told their story to anyone who would listen. She told it without shame, without editing out the hard parts, because she understood that the hard parts were what made the ending so beautiful. On her own deathbed, surrounded by her children and grandchildren, she smiled. "He's here," she said, "waiting for me on the porch." And then she was gone. They buried her beside him, under the orange tree. The headstone bears 2 names, Roberto Mendez and Magdalena Villarreal, and beneath them the words she had chosen. They loved, they lost, they found their way back. Today, if you visit the valley of San Cristobal, you can still see Los Laureles. The hacienda is gone, replaced by smaller farms, but the orange tree still stands. And if you sit beneath it on an October afternoon, when the sun paints the sky in those colors that seem too beautiful to be real, the old ones in the town will tell you that sometimes, just sometimes, you can see them. An old man and an old woman sitting on a porch that no longer exists, watching a sunset that never ends, holding hands across eternity. Perhaps it's true. Perhaps love like that doesn't end. Perhaps it simply changes form. Perhaps it becomes the light in a grandchild's eyes, the strength in a daughter's hands, the hope in a son's heart. Perhaps it becomes the story we tell ourselves in the dark, the story that reminds us that no matter how far we stray, no matter how deep we fall, there is always a way back. Always. What would you do for a second chance? Would you have the courage to return, broken and humbled, and fight for the love you lost? Would you have the strength to forgive and open your heart to the very person who shattered it? Would you have the patience to earn what you once threw away? Have you ever had to choose between pride and love, between walking away and staying to fight for something that seemed already dead? Have you ever been given a second chance and wondered if you deserved it? Have you ever given someone a second chance and wondered if you were a fool or a saint? Have you ever watched someone you love transform before your eyes, becoming the person you always knew they could be? Have you ever understood that forgiveness is not a single moment, but 1,000 small choices made over years? Have you ever realized that love is not about never hurting each other, but about hurting each other and choosing to stay anyway? Have you ever held your child for the first time and understood that everything that came before, all the pain and all the joy was worth it for this single moment? Have you ever watched the sunset with someone you love and known deep in your soul that this is what eternity feels like? Have you ever sat beneath an orange tree and felt the presence of those who came before you, their love still warm in the air around you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us your story. Have you experienced a love like this? Have you had to find your way back to someone? Have you been given a second chance or given one to someone else? Like this video if it touched your heart. Share it with someone who needs to hear that redemption is always possible. Subscribe to Divine Story Builders and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story of faith, love, and the extraordinary power of forgiveness. Because every one of us has a story. Every one of us has fallen. Every one of us has the chance to rise again. Until next time, may you find the courage to love, the humility to return, and the grace to forgive. And remember, it's never too late to find your way back.